Commander Du-hyun stood at the main control room window of the greatest fortress ever built. His chest swelled with pride as he looked at the massive walls that reached into the orange sky of Nova Proxima. The fortress was perfect. No human would ever get through its defenses. "Commander, the final security tests are complete," said Security Chief Hae-Nul, walking up to stand beside him. "All systems are working at 100%. Do-hyun nodded slowly, his silver-scaled skin gleaming under the control room's lights. "Show me the test results," he said. Hae-Nul touched the large screen on the wall. Numbers and images appeared, showing all the fortress's defense systems. "The energy shields can stop any known human weapon," she explained. "The quantum detectors can find any cloaking device, and the biological scanners can spot even the smallest change in a person's DNA." Do-hyun smiled. After 5 years of work, the Kyoran Empire finally had a truly safe base on this disputed planet. The humans had been pushing into this part of space for too long. Now they would learn that some places were beyond their reach. "What about the AI system?" Do-hyun asked, turning to look at the fortress's heart, a glowing blue crystal in the center of the control room. "The AI is working perfectly," Hae-Nul replied. "It controls all defense systems and follows all Kyoran laws and customs. Nothing can fool it." Just then, High Commander Ta-Won's voice came through the speakers. "Do-hyun, come to the meeting room. The human government has sent another message." Do-hyun and Hae-Nul walked through the fortress's shining corridors. Guards stood at every corner, their armor matching the metallic walls. The fortress was like a living thing, with scanners watching every movement and defense systems ready to stop any attack. In the meeting room, Ta-Won sat at the head of a long table. His face showed worry despite their strong position. "The humans want to talk about sharing Nova Proxima," he said. "They say they will send a diplomat." Do-hyun laughed. "Let them send anyone they want. This fortress was built to keep humans out, and that's exactly what it will do." He walked to the window and looked at the massive door below, the fortress's main entrance. "No human technology can be our defenses. No human trick can fool our eye." "The diplomat's name is Jae-yun Park," Ta-Won said, reading from the message. "She will arrive in 3 days." Hae-Nul checked the security systems again. "Our scanners are ready. If this human tries to bring any weapons or technology to help them break in, we will know." Do-hyun turned back to the table. "The humans don't understand," he said. "They think everything is about having better technology or stronger weapons. But we Kyoran know better. We have built something perfect, a fortress that combines advanced technology with the wisdom of our laws and customs." The 3 Kyoran leaders spent the next hour planning how they would handle the human diplomat's visit. They were sure nothing could go wrong. Their fortress was ready for any human attack or trick. As the sun set outside, painting the sky deep red, Do-hyun stood alone in the control room again. He watched the fortress's night defenses turn on, fields of energy that glowed softly in the growing darkness. Soon the humans would learn an important lesson about Kyoran power. "Let them come," he said quietly to himself. "Let them see what they're up against. This fortress will show them that some boundaries cannot be crossed." But somewhere in the back of his mind, a small doubt appeared. The humans had surprised the Kyoran before. They had ways of thinking that sometimes made no sense to his people. Do-hyun pushed the thought away. No matter how clever humans might be, they couldn't beat something perfect. The fortress's lights shone in the night like stars brought down to the ground. Its defenses hummed with power, ready for anything. Or so they thought. Jae-yun Park sat in her office on Earth, reading the message from her superiors again. The assignment seemed impossible. Go to Nova Proxima and negotiate with the Kyoran Empire. The same Kyoran who had just built an impenetrable fortress to keep humans out. She looked at the holographic image floating above her desk. The fortress was beautiful in a strange way, like a silver mountain reaching into the sky. Reports said it had the strongest defenses ever created. "You wanted to see me?" asked a voice from the doorway. Sung Min walked in, carrying several data tablets. As the leading expert on Kyoran culture, he would help prepare Jai Yun for her mission. Yes, Jai Yun said, turning off the hologram. I need to understand everything about the Kyoran. Their fortress isn't just about technology. There's something more to it. Some men sat down and spread the tablets on her desk. The Kyoran are very different from us, he explained. They believe perfect systems can solve any problem. To them, this fortress is more than a building. It's proof that their way of thinking is right. Jai Yun nodded slowly. After 15 years as a diplomat, she had learned that understanding how others think was more important than any technology. Tell me about their laws, she said. For the next 3 hours, Sung Min taught her about Kyoran culture. He explained their ancient customs, their love of perfect systems, and their strict laws. Jai Yun listened carefully, asking questions that surprised even Sung Min with their insight. There's something interesting here, she said finally, pointing to one of the tablets. The Kyoran never break their own rules. Even their most advanced AI must follow their ancient customs. Sung Min looked impressed. Most people focus on their technology, he said. But you're right. Their customs are just as important to them as their machines. Jai Yun stood and walked to the window. Earth's busy spaceports spread out below, ships coming and going like silver birds. Everyone expects me to fail, she said quietly. They think the fortress is impossible to enter. What do you think? Sung Min asked. A small smile appeared on Jai Yun's face. I think the Kyoran have built exactly what they wanted. A perfect system. And perfect systems often have the simplest weaknesses. The next day, Jai Yun prepared for her journey. She packed no weapons, no special technology, and no tools. Her only luggage was a small bag containing formal diplomatic clothes and the data tablets about Kyoran culture. Her superior officer, Admiral Young-ho, met her at the spaceport. Are you sure you don't want to take any protective equipment? He asked, worried. The Kyoran fortress has weapons we've never seen before. The only things I need are up here, Jai Yun replied, tapping her head. Sometimes the best way through a wall is to make friends with the builder. As she boarded her ship, Jai Yun thought about the challenge ahead. The Kyoran had spent years building their perfect fortress. They believed it proved humans couldn't match their technology. But Jai Yun knew something they didn't. Sometimes the strongest walls could be defeated with a simple hello. The ship's engine started, and Earth grew smaller behind her. In 3 days, she would stand before the fortress that no human could enter. But where others saw an impossible wall, Jai Yun saw an opportunity. After all, the best way to solve a problem was often the way no one expected. As her ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jai Yun reviewed her plan one last time. The Kyoran had built their fortress expecting force or clever technology. They weren't prepared for something much simpler, a human who understood their ways better than they did. High Commander Ta Wan watched the small human ship land outside the fortress. It looked plain and simple, nothing like the warships he had expected. He stood in the main control room with Du Hyun and He Newell, all three watching the screens carefully. Our scanners detect no weapons, He Newell reported, checking the readings again. No special technology, no hidden devices, just one human passenger. Do Hyun frowned. That can't be right. Check again. The screens lit up as the fortress's systems ran another scan. The results were the same. The human diplomat had brought nothing that could threaten their defenses. Should we let her approach? He Newell asked, her hand hovering over the control panel. Tadawan thought for a moment. Yes, he said finally. Let's see what kind of game this human is playing. Outside, Jai Yun Park stepped from her ship. She wore simple diplomatic clothes in Earth's colors, blue and white. The fortress rose before her like a mountain made of metal, its walls shining under Nova Proxima's orange sun. Human diplomat, a voice boomed from the fortress speakers. Stay where you are. Jai Yun stopped and stood calmly. She looked up at the nearest camera and smiled. I am Jae-yun Park, representing Earth. I request a meeting with High Commander Tawan. Inside the control room, the three Kyorin leaders watched her with growing curiosity. This was not what they had expected. Bring her to the outer meeting room, Tawan ordered. But first, make sure she understands our terms. Haenul's voice echoed through the speakers. Human diplomat, before any meeting, you should know this. No human can enter our fortress. Our defenses are perfect. Jae-yun nodded. I understand. But perhaps we could make this interesting. Do-hyun leaned forward, interested despite himself. What do you mean? A challenge, Jae-yun said, still looking directly at the camera. If a human can enter your fortress legally, through the front door, you will agree to real diplomatic talks about Nova Proxima. The control room filled with laughter. Even the usually serious Ta-won smiled. And if no human can enter, he asked. Then Earth will accept that this planet belongs to the Kyorin Empire. Jae-yun replied calmly. The three leaders looked at each other. The offer seemed too good to be true. There must be a trick, Do-hyun said. She must have some plan. What could one human do against our perfect defenses? Haenul asked. Our systems can stop any technology they have. Taiwan raised his hand for silence. Human diplomat, he said into the speaker, we accept your challenge. You have 3 attempts to enter our fortress. You must use the main entrance. You cannot use any special technology. If you fail, Nova Proxima belongs to us. I understand, Jae-yun said, but I only need 1 attempt. Her confidence made Do-hyun uncomfortable. He checked the security systems again, but everything was working perfectly. The fortress's AI monitored every inch of the building. Nothing could get through without being detected. When would you like to make your attempt? Ta-won asked. Jae-yun smiled again. I'm ready now. The 3 Kyorin leaders gathered at the main security station. Screens showed every angle of the entrance. Guards stood ready. Every defense system was active. Let her try, Do-hyun said. Let all humans see that our fortress cannot be defeated. But as they watched Jae-yun walk calmly toward the main entrance, a strange feeling crept over them. Something about her confidence didn't make sense. What could one human possibly do against the greatest fortress ever built? They were about to find out. Jae-yun sat in the small meeting room outside the fortress, studying the data tablet Sung-min had given her. The room was plain, with just a table and a few chairs. Through the window, she could see the fortress's massive walls stretching up into the orange sky. Your 3-hour waiting period starts now. Security Chief Haenul's voice came through the speakers. Use this time to prepare for your attempt. Jae-yun nodded, though she knew they couldn't see her. The Kyorin had given her this time, expecting her to plan some clever technical trick. Instead, she was reading about their oldest customs and laws. She opened a message from Sung-min on her tablet. Remember, it said, the Kyorin believe perfect systems cannot fail. Their fortress AI must follow every Kyorin law, no matter how old. Look for the connection. Jae-yun smiled. She had already found it. Deep in the ancient Kyorin laws, there was a rule about welcoming visitors. It was so old that most Kyorin had forgotten about it, but their AI would have it programmed into its core rules. In the control room, Do-hyun watched the screens showing Jae-yun. What is she doing? He asked. She's just sitting there reading. Maybe she has given up, Haenul suggested. But she didn't sound sure. Taiwan shook his head. No, look at her face. She knows something we don't. Jae-yun stood up and walked to the window. The fortress's main entrance was beautiful, covered in Kyorin writing. She took out her tablet's camera and zoomed in on the words. What is she looking at? Do-hyun asked. Haenul checked the security feeds. The ancient blessing carved above the door. It's from the time of our first empire. It welcomes all peaceful visitors who follow our ways. That's just decoration, Do-hyun said. It has nothing to do with our modern defenses. But Jae-yun had noticed something they hadn't. The blessing wasn't just decoration. It was part of the fortress's programming. The AI that controlled everything had to follow all Kyoran laws, including the ancient ones about hospitality. She spent the next hour practicing the traditional Kyoran greeting words. Her pronunciation had to be perfect. One small mistake, and her plan would fail. In the fortress, the guards were getting restless. They had expected action, maybe even a fight. Instead, they watched a human reading and talking to herself. She must have some kind of plan, Haynul said. No human would come this far just to fail. Our defenses are perfect, Du-hyun replied. But he didn't sound as confident as before. As the second hour passed, Jae-yun changed into her formal diplomatic clothes. They were made in the old Kyoran style, following traditions that went back thousands of years. Most humans thought these traditions were outdated, but Jae-yun knew better. 1 hour remaining, the speakers announced. Jae-yun put away her tablet and stood up. She looked calm, but her heart was beating fast. Everything depended on what she had learned about the Kyoran's own rules. I am ready, she said. In the control room, all 3 Kyoran leaders gathered around the main screen. Guards took their positions. Defense systems powered up to full strength. Let her try, Du-hyun said. Let her see how impossible this is. But as they watched Jae-yun walk toward the fortress entrance, none of them noticed that she was smiling. She had found what every other human had missed. Sometimes the way through a perfect defense was to follow the defender's own rules. The morning sun of Nova Proxima cast long shadows across the ground as Jae-yun walked toward the fortress entrance. Her formal diplomatic clothes, made in the ancient Kyoran style, moved softly in the wind. She held her head high, showing no fear. Inside the control room, every screen showed her approach from different angles. Security Chief Haynul watched the scanner readings carefully. Still no weapons, she reported. No hidden technology. Nothing but cloth and simple metal decorations. Commander Du-hyun stood at the main window, watching Jae-yun with his own eyes. Run the scans again, he ordered. She must have something we're missing. The fortress computers hummed as they ran more detailed scans. The results were the same. Jae-yun carried nothing that could defeat their defenses. Perhaps that is her plan, High Commander Taiwan said quietly. To make us so worried about what she might do that we miss what she is doing. Jae-yun stopped 50 steps from the main entrance. The massive door rose above her like a metal wall. Ancient Kyoran writing covered its surface, glowing softly in the morning light. The fortress's eye watched through 1,000 sensors, ready to stop any threat. State your purpose. Haynul's voice came through the speakers. Jae-yun looked up at the nearest camera. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. I am Jae-yun Park, a diplomatic envoy from Earth. I come seeking peaceful talks with the Kyoran Empire. The guards at the entrance raised their weapons. They expected her to try something clever or dangerous. Instead, she simply stood there, waiting. Our scans show you are unarmed, Haynul said, but that means nothing. Our defenses will stop any trick you try. Jae-yun smiled. I have no tricks. I come following the ancient ways of the Kyoran Empire, as your laws allow. In the control room, Taiwan leaned forward. Something about her words bothered him. They reminded him of something, but he couldn't remember what. Approach the entrance, Haynul ordered. Slowly, Jae-yun walked forward. Her steps followed the formal pattern of Kyoran diplomatic ceremonies. Each movement was perfect, just as the ancient rules required. The fortress's eye watched her closely. Its programs compared her actions to millions of possible threats, but it also checked them against other things. Old laws, ancient customs, and rules that had existed since the First Empire. 10 steps from the entrance, Du-hyun announced. All weapons are locked on target. Jae-yun stopped again. The door's surface rippled with energy fields strong enough to stop a warship, but she saw something else in the glowing metal patterns that matched the words in her diplomatic books. Final warning, Haynul said. Any hostile action will be met with full defensive force. I understand, Jai-yun replied. Then she began to speak in the ancient Kyorin language. Her words were old, but the fortress's AI knew them well. They were part of its original programming, rules it could never break. The three Kyorin leaders listened in surprise. None of them had heard these words in many years. They were from the oldest welcome ceremony of their people. What is she doing? Du-hyun asked. But part of him already knew. He could see it in the way the fortress's systems were responding to her words. Jai-yun finished speaking and took one more step forward. Now she stood directly before the entrance. Everything depended on what would happen next. The fortress's perfect defenses hummed with power, ready to stop any attack. But Jai-yun wasn't attacking. She was doing something much simpler and much more dangerous to the Kyorin's perfect system. Jai-yun stood before the massive entrance, her heart beating steadily in her chest. The ancient Kyorin words she had spoken hung in the air. Inside the fortress, something was happening that the Kyorin leaders had not expected. The fortress's AI was processing her words. Its programming compared them to every rule in its system. Deep in its core programming, ancient laws started to activate. Laws about welcoming peaceful visitors who followed proper customs. In the control room, warning lights began to flash. The AI is changing defense protocols, Hae-nul reported, her fingers moving quickly across the control panel. It's responding to some kind of override command. Impossible, Du-hyun said. No one can override our perfect system. She's not overriding it, Ta-won said slowly, understanding finally coming to him. She's using it exactly as it was designed to work. The AI had found a match in its programming. Jai-yun had followed every step of the ancient welcome ceremony perfectly. She had spoken the traditional words without a single mistake. According to the oldest Kyorin laws, laws that were part of the AI's core programming, she had to be welcomed inside. Stop the AI, Du-hyun ordered. Override its commands. We can't, Hae-nul replied. These are core diplomatic protocols. The AI must follow them. They're as important as its defense programming. Outside, Jai-yun watched as the energy fields around the door began to change. The fortress wasn't lowering its defenses. It was recognizing her as a welcome guest according to its own rules. The human has met all requirements for diplomatic entry, the AI announced. Its voice was different now, following the formal patterns of ancient Kyorin ceremonies. By the laws of hospitality laid down in the First Empire, she must be allowed to enter. Do-hyun turned to Ta-won. High Commander, you must stop this. But Ta-won shook his head. No, he said quietly. She has won fairly. She found the one thing we forgot when we built our perfect fortress, our own traditions. The massive door began to open. There was no alarm, no sense of defeat. The fortress was simply following its programming, exactly as it had been designed to do. Jai-yun had turned the Kyorin's perfect system into the key to her entry. Welcome, Diplomat Jai-yun Park, the AI said. You may enter the fortress as our honored guest. Jai-yun walked forward calmly. The guards stood frozen, unable to stop her. Their weapons powered down automatically. The AI would not allow any harm to come to a properly recognized diplomatic guest. In the control room, Do-hyun watched in amazement as Jai-yun walked through the entrance. All their advanced technology, all their perfect defenses, had been unable to stop her. Not because she had beaten them, but because she had followed their rules better than they had. How? He asked. How did we miss this? We were so focused on making everything perfect, Ta-won answered, that we forgot the oldest rules of our people. The human didn't forget. She understood our ways better than we did. Jai-yun stepped into the fortress's main hall. The AI's voice echoed through the building, speaking the ancient words of welcome. She had done what no human had managed before. She had entered the impenetrable fortress, not with weapons or technology, but with understanding and respect for Kyorin traditions. Commander Do-hyun walked slowly down the fortress corridor, his mind trying to understand what had just happened. Ahead of him, Jai-yun Park walked calmly between two guards, her diplomatic robes moving softly with each step. The fortress's AI continued to speak ancient welcome phrases through the speakers. "Take her to the main meeting room," High Commander Taiwan ordered through the communication system. His voice sounded different now, less confident, more thoughtful. Security Chief Hainul studied her control screens with growing concern. The fortress's systems were working perfectly, but not in the way they had expected. Every defense protocol recognized Jiayun as an honored guest. The AI was treating her exactly as the ancient laws demanded. "Our perfect system," Du Hyun said quietly. "She turned it against us." "No," Jiayun replied, hearing his words. "I didn't turn it against you. I simply reminded it of what it was always meant to do." They entered the main meeting room, where Taiwan waited. The large room had windows looking out over Nova Proxima's orange landscape. The fortress's walls gleamed in the sunlight, still as strong and perfect as ever. "Sit, please," Taiwan said, pointing to a chair at the large table. "I believe you have earned the right to explain how you did this." Jiayun sat down carefully, keeping her movements formal and correct as Kyoran tradition required. "Your fortress is indeed perfect," she said. "It follows every rule exactly as it should, including the rules about welcoming peaceful visitors." Do Hyun looked at the walls of his fortress, seeing them differently now. "We spent 5 years making sure no one could break in," he said. "We never thought someone would simply walk in." "That's why she succeeded," Taiwan said, understanding growing in his voice. "We were so proud of our technology that we forgot our own traditions, but the human remembered them." Hanul checked her security screens one more time. "Every defense system is still working perfectly," she reported. "But they all recognize her as a proper diplomatic guest. We can't override that without breaking our own core laws." "You built exactly what you wanted," Jiayun said gently. "A perfect system that follows all Kyoran laws, including laws older than this fortress, older than our conflict over this planet." The room fell quiet as her words sank in. The Kyoran leaders looked at each other, seeing their mistake clearly now. They had been so focused on keeping humans out that they had forgotten what their fortress was truly meant to be, a place where their civilization's rules and traditions were perfectly followed. "We thought humans would try to defeat our technology," Du Hyun said. "We never expected one would simply learn our ways better than we remembered them ourselves." Taiwan stood and walked to the window. Outside, the fortress stood strong and undefeated. Yet a human had walked through its front door, using nothing but knowledge and respect for Kyoran traditions. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time we remembered what our perfect systems were originally built for. Not just to keep others out, but to uphold all our values, including how we welcome those who come in peace." Jiayun smiled softly. The fortress's AI continued its welcome ceremony, speaking words that had been ancient when the first Kyoran ships reached the stars. In the end, the strongest defense had been defeated not by force or clever tricks, but by something much simpler: understanding and respect for the defender's own rules. 1 month after Jiayun Park walked through the fortress door, Nova Proxima looked different. The fortress still stood tall and strong, but now its main entrance stayed open during the day. Both human and Kyoran ships landed at the new spaceport beside it. Inside the fortress's main control room, Commander Du Hyun worked at his desk. The screen still showed perfect defense systems, but they had been updated. Now they recognized both Kyoran and human diplomatic protocols. "The latest security update is complete," Security Chief Hainul reported, entering the room. "The AI now understands all Earth diplomatic traditions, just as it knows our own." Do Hyun nodded, looking at the new programming. The fortress was still perfect, but in a different way now. It protected both peoples while helping them work together. "Where is the human diplomat?" he asked. "In the garden room with High Commander Taiwan," Hainul replied. "They are finishing the new peace agreement." In the garden room, Jiayun sat with Taiwan at a table made of earthwood and Kyoran metal. Plants from both worlds grew around them. Through the windows, They could see the fortress walls shining in the orange sunlight. "Your people were right about one thing," Jiayun said, looking at the final agreement on her tablet. "Perfect systems are valuable, but they must be perfect in wisdom, not just in strength." Taiwan smiled. After a month of working with Jiayun, he had learned to appreciate human ways of thinking. "And your people were right that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one," he replied. The agreement they had written was simple but powerful. Nova Proxima would be shared between both peoples. The fortress would protect everyone who came in peace and followed proper diplomatic rules. "Commander Dugan's report is quite interesting," Taiwan said, showing Jiayun another tablet. "He says our fortress is now twice as strong as before. Not because we added more weapons, but because it understands both our ways." Jiayun read the report with satisfaction. The fortress's AI had learned that true security came from understanding, not just from strong walls. It still stopped anyone who came with weapons or bad intentions, but it welcomed those who came in peace. Outside the fortress, a new ship was landing. It carried more diplomats from Earth, coming to learn about Kyoran traditions. Soon, another ship would take young Kyoran leaders to Earth to learn human ways. "We thought our perfect fortress would keep humans away," Du Hyun said, entering the garden room. "Instead, it taught us how to live together." Hanul checked her security screens one last time before ending her shift. Everything worked perfectly, but now perfection meant something different. The fortress protected both peoples by understanding both cultures. As the sun set on Nova Proxima, the fortress glowed with a new kind of strength. Its walls were still unbreakable, its systems still perfect. But now it stood for something greater than just defense. It showed how understanding could be stronger than any weapon. Jiayun looked up at the fortress walls from the garden room. The ancient Kyoran writing above the door had new words beside it now. The same welcome message in Earth languages. Two different peoples had learned to share one space, making it better than it had been before. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the best way to solve a problem is not to break through walls, but to show people a better way to use them." The fortress's AI hummed softly, its perfect systems working as they always had. But now they worked to protect peace, not just to keep others out. In the end, that was the most perfect system of all.